My girlfriend of 4 years thinks I am cheating because I started working out and eating healthy. I am Adrian, and my girlfriend Marissa have been together for over 4 years, living together in a rented apartment in Seattle for the last 3. I pay about 70% of our rent, and most of our bills since I make more as an industrial design engineer, while she works as a restaurant manager. Everything was fine until my annual physical this spring. My doctor sat me down with a serious face after reviewing my results. He asked about my family history, and when I mentioned my father died of a heart attack at 55, his expression grew more concerned. He explained that my cholesterol was arterial, blood pressure 96/150, and my UAC was 64, which is pre-diabetic territory. He showed me a risk assessment chart and pointed to where my numbers fell. With these numbers and your family history, he said, you are heading down a concerning path if we don't make some changes now. That night I made pasta for dinner and tried explaining everything to Marissa. When I mentioned cutting back on desserts, she smirked and said, so I guess this is another excuse not to share ice cream, huh? I showed her my test results, but she just rolled her eyes and changed the subject. I was hurt but figured she needed time to process. I completely overhauled my lifestyle. I started waking up at 5:30 a.m. to hit the gym before work, meal prepping on Sundays, and cutting back on alcohol. I explained to Marissa this was about staying alive, not some midlife crisis. Her response, you are acting like an old man. We are barely in our 30s. As the weeks passed, the distance between us grew. She continued going out drinking with friends and ordering takeout, while I was focused on improving my health. She would make comments like, since when are you too good for pizza? Or one beer will not kill you. I was chopping vegetables when the front door slammed open. Marissa stormed in with Jess right behind her. Don't pretend anymore. Marissa threw her bag on the counter, her face rigid with anger. I know you are cheating. I stood frozen, knife still in hand. What? Where is this coming from? Stop playing dumb. She counted on her fingers. You hide your phone, suddenly care about your appearance, and you are completely distant with me. That is because of my health situation. I have explained this. Marissa crossed her arms. I checked your phone while you were in the shower. I felt my stomach drop. You did what? And I had Jess test you at the gym. She glanced at Jess, who nodded smugly. Remember that woman who asked you questions while you were on the treadmill? You didn't even mention you were engaged. Wait, that was a setup. I was just being polite. I was in the middle of working out. Jess cut in. A faithful man would immediately say, I have a girlfriend to shut it down. This is absurd. I shook my head in disbelief. You didn't find anything on my phone, did you? Because there is nothing to find. See how defensive he is getting. Marissa looked at Jess with a knowing smirk. Classic sign. I am still in shock. I have never given Marissa any reason to distrust me. I have been transparent about my health journey from day one. Now I am sleeping on my brother's couch in Bellevue because I cannot stand the tension at home. Has anyone dealt with something like this? I feel like I am taking crazy pills. All I wanted was to avoid my father's fate, and somehow that translated into me cheating. I don't know if this is salvageable or if I should just accept that we are on completely different pages about our future. Update 1, the gym loyalty test was even more bizarre than I initially explained. Jess approached me while I was on the treadmill, asking workout advice. I was polite but focused on my exercise, mentioning I only had a limited window before work. Later, she coincidentally used the machine next to mine and tried making conversation about personal training. I gave short answers and put my earbuds back in. According to Marissa, a faithful man would have either completely ignored a woman at the gym or immediately mentioned having a girlfriend. The fact that I was polite but distant was apparently the perfect behavior of someone with experience cheating. I have since requested security footage from that day, which the gym manager agreed to save for me. Yesterday was our coffee shop talk. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, another change, used to be caramel lattes, and waited. Marissa showed up, with Jess again. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be an interrogation. They sat down, and instead of discussing our relationship, they immediately started questioning me about my suspicious behavior. Every health decision I had made was reframed as evidence of infidelity. Why do you suddenly care about your appearance after 4 years? Why are you meal prepping instead of eating with me? Why are you so protective of your phone now? I put my lab results on the table and said, because I am trying to stay alive, not cheat. I explained again about my dad, the doctor's warnings, everything. Marissa's response: you should have communicated better. I reminded her about showing her the test results that night at the kitchen table. She admitted she remembered, but said, how was I supposed to know it was that serious? You didn't make it clear enough. That is when it hit me. This wasn't about miscommunication. It was about control. My lifestyle changes happened without her permission. And rather than support me, she created a narrative where I was the villain. When I calmly pointed this out, Marissa got angry. She said I was making her look bad in front of Jess, even though she is the one who brought an audience to what should have been a private conversation. The final straw was when she said, if you really loved me, you would find a compromise between your health and our relationship. I asked what that meant practically. Her answer: maybe work out every other day instead of daily. Have cheat meals with me. Stop being so extreme. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, I am not compromising on living past 55. Then I walked out. What I didn't mention in my first post is that Marissa has always struggled with change. When I got promoted last year, she was oddly distant for weeks. She said she was happy for me but kept making comments about how I had leave her behind, now that I had a better title. I spent weeks reassuring her, even turning down optional networking events to prove my commitment. Looking back, that was the first red flag I should have noticed. When I got back to my brother's place, I had dozens of texts ranging from how dare you embarrass me to I am sorry you misunderstood me to we need to talk alone without influences. Meaning my brother, who she thinks is poisoning me against her. That night, more messages flooded in. First angry, you chose a stupid diet over our relationship. Then guilt-tripping, I have been crying all night. Is that what you wanted? Then manipulative. I spoke with my therapist and she agrees you are being extreme about this health thing. She doesn't have a therapist. One of my colleagues noticed my distraction at work and asked if everything was okay. I gave her a vague overview, and she shared her own experience with a controlling ex. She recommended a book about controlling relationships that helped me see our relationship through a new lens. Today, I decided to swing by our apartment to grab more clothes while Marissa was at work. That is when I discovered she changed the locks. I called the landlord, who knew nothing about it. He is checking whether this violates our lease agreement. While waiting in my car outside the apartment, I received a call from Marissa's mother. She has always been kind to me, and I respect her, so I answered. She started by saying she was worried about both of us, but as the conversation continued, it became clear she was trying to convince me to be the bigger person and just apologize so things can go back to normal. When I explained about my health concerns, she said, all men go through these fitness phases. It will pass, but marriage is forever. I am still processing everything. For 4 years, I thought we were building a life together. Now I am realizing I might not actually know who Marissa is when she doesn't get her way. I have contacted a lawyer friend to understand my options regarding the apartment and our shared possessions. I am also looking for a therapist because this whole situation is taking a toll on my mental health, which isn't helping my physical health either. Next steps are figuring out the apartment situation and officially ending things. I cannot see a way forward with someone who views my health as a threat to our relationship. Update: 2 things have escalated dramatically since my last update. After discovering the changed locks, I called our landlord. He confirmed Marissa had no right to change the locks without both our signatures, as we are both on the lease. He gave me access to the apartment the next day. When I finally got inside, I discovered she had packed most of my belongings into boxes and moved them to our storage unit in the basement. The real gut punch came when I found my collection of watches that I inherited from my dad. They were carelessly thrown into a shoebox with no protection, and several had significant scratches on the faces and cases. These watches aren't just valuable monetarily, they are irreplaceable sentimental items. My dad collected them throughout his life, and specifically left them to me in his will. The vintage Omega that he wore to his job interviews and eventually to my graduation now has a deep scratch across the crystal. I documented everything with photos and video, showing the condition of the watches and how they were stored. When I confronted Marissa via text about the watches, her response was cold. Maybe now you will understand how I felt when you damaged our relationship. The next blow came from social media. She has been posting vague, but obviously targeted statements about betrayal and men who change overnight. Several mutual friends have reached out asking if I really cheated on her. The narrative she is spinning is completely detached from reality, but she is convincing people because health concerns aren't as salacious as infidelity. But wait, it gets even more absurd. 2 days ago, I received a call from the local police station. Marissa had filed a report claiming I stole items from the apartment. When I explained the situation and showed the officer my name on the lease, plus texts from Marissa acknowledging she had packed my things, they classified it as a civil dispute. The officer actually seemed sympathetic and suggested I document everything carefully. Then yesterday, I received an actual legal demand letter, not from a real attorney, but from some kind of legal advocate service. The letter demands I pay Marissa $1,900 for emotional distress, $850 for time invested in relationship, $2,250 for her contribution to household items, and most ridiculously, $20,000 for breach of promise to marry. The total demand is $25,000, with a threat to sue if I don't respond within 10 days. The letter is filled with legal-sounding language, but shows a fundamental misunderstanding of actual law. Fortunately, my cousin Nicole is a paralegal at a family law firm. She helped draft a response letter that systematically dismantled each claim. We explained that Washington state doesn't recognize breach of promise to marry claims. There is no basis for emotional distress claims in a mutual breakup. Time invested in a relationship has no monetary value under state law, and household items would need to be itemized with proof of purchase and current value. We also included a counter-demand for the damage to my watches, with professional appraisals of their value and repair costs. Miraculously, this seemed to get through to Marissa, or at least to whoever was advising her. I received a text from her sister suggesting we handle this like adults and avoid lawyers. The tone had completely changed from demands to negotiation. Nicole helped me draft a settlement proposal covering termination of our lease, with costs split equally, return of all personal property, a mutual non-disparagement agreement to stop the social media attacks, and a full release of all potential claims. What I didn't share in my previous updates is how deeply the watch situation affected me. The Omega's damage was the most painful. It is a 1960s Seamaster that he saved for months to buy secondhand as a young man. The crystal now has a jagged scratch right across the center, and the case has several deep gouges. I took it to a watchmaker who believed he could repair the crystal, but said the case damage would remain visible. It would cost nearly $800 to repair properly, but the sentimental value is incalculable. After receiving the legal demand letter, I went to a consultation with a family law attorney. He listened to my story, reviewed the photos and evidence, and then said something that stuck with me. This isn't about money or watches or apartments. This is about control and punishment. He explained that Marissa's escalating behavior followed a common pattern when someone feels they are losing power in a relationship. While all this was happening, my gym routine became my sanctuary. The hour each morning when I could focus solely on physical movement kept me grounded. My trainer suggested I try boxing as an outlet, and hitting the heavy bag while working through this emotional turmoil has been unexpectedly therapeutic. The situation has revealed who my true friends are. Some mutual friends immediately took Marissa's side based on her social media posts, without even asking for my perspective. Others reached out privately to check on me. My coworker invited me to join his Sunday hiking group, saying, "Fresh air and mountain views put relationship drama in perspective." We are waiting on a response, but at least there is movement toward resolution. The leasing office has confirmed they will let us break the lease with a 2-month penalty if both of us agree to vacate. Through all this, I have continued my health journey. My doctor is pleased with my progress so far. My blood pressure is down to 140/88, and I have lost 16 pounds. The stress isn't helping, but exercise has become my therapy until I can start actual therapy next week. I am staying with my brother until this is resolved, but I have started looking at studio apartments near Lake Union. I just want to move on with my life and focus on my health. Final update after my last update, Marissa finally agreed to our settlement proposal. We terminated the lease, each paying half of the penalty. The property manager was understanding and even helped me find a studio in another building they managed near Lake Union. 2 days after signing the paperwork, I received an envelope in my brother's mailbox. Inside was my grandmother's engagement ring in a sandwich zip bag. No note, no nothing. Just the ring in plastic, like it was leftover food. It was petty, but it also gave me closure. I sold the ring and used part of the money for a security deposit on my new place, and donated the rest to the American Heart Association in my dad's name. The damage to my watches wasn't as bad as I initially feared. A skilled watchmaker was able to replace the crystal on my dad's Omega, and while it is not perfect, it is wearable again. I have displayed the collection in a proper case in my new apartment, as a reminder of both my dad and the relationship bullet I dodged. As for Marissa, I have heard through mutual friends that she is telling people I had a midlife crisis and that she is better off. One friend secretly told me she has been complaining that dating is harder now that she is over 30. I don't wish her ill, but I do hope she learned something from this experience. The best news is about my health. At my 6-month checkup last week, my numbers were dramatically improved. My blood pressure is now 76/120/7. Cholesterol down to 1.0R, EOC at a healthy 5. And I have lost 32 pounds total. My doctor actually got emotional when comparing my current results to where I started. He said, "This is why I became a doctor. You are not going to follow your father's path." That validation meant everything to me. Therapy has been equally transformative. My therapist helped me recognize patterns in my relationship with Marissa that I was blind to. I had been walking on eggshells for years, always prioritizing her emotional reactions over my needs. When I finally put myself first with my health journey, it disrupted the dynamic she had come to expect, and she couldn't handle it. Looking back, I realize I didn't lose a marriage. I avoided a disaster. I have been dating someone new for about 2 months now. Her name is Emma, and we met at a 5K charity run for heart disease research. She is a physical therapist who works with cardiac rehabilitation patients, so she not only understands my health journey but actively supports it. On our first date, she suggested we go hiking instead of the traditional dinner and drinks. When I told her about what happened with Marissa, she was genuinely baffled. "Wait, your girlfriend was upset that you were trying not to have a heart attack?" she asked. That is the opposite of how relationships should work. What is refreshing about being with Emma is how natural it feels to prioritize health together. We meal prep on Sundays, try new active hobbies. Rock climbing last weekend was a disaster but hilarious, and she even helped me train for my first 10K run. When I crossed the finish line, she was there with a ridiculous hand-painted sign that read "Heart Health is Sexy," complete with embarrassing heart drawings. I am not saying everything with Emma is perfect. We are taking things slow and being honest about what we want.